Chapter 5. Questions and Answers. Craddock was talking to Detective Inspector Cornish. "Have you been able to find out anything locally?" he asked. "No," said Cornish. "Heather Badcock didn't have any enemies, and she had a good relationship with her husband." "She didn't have a lover? Her husband didn't want to marry anyone else? No one in the office where he worked?" "No, but he's friendly with a neighbour. When I went back with him from the inquest, she'd gone into his house and was making him tea. She's a good-looking woman. Not young, but handsome. Dark eyes. I've got a feeling I've seen her before." Cornish looked at his watch. "I've made an appointment for you at Gossington Hall at 12. We'd better go." Cornish drove Craddock to Gossington Hall and introduced him to Haley Preston, the pleasant young man who was a personal assistant to Jason Rudd. Preston took Craddock up to the top of the stairs where Heather Badcock died. "She was sitting right there in this chair," the young man said. "She said she didn't feel well. Then she just died right there. I don't know if there was anything wrong with her heart." "She had nothing wrong with her heart," said Craddock. "She was very healthy. She died of an overdose of the drug, Carmo." "I know Carmo," said Haley Preston. "I take it myself sometimes. It has a wonderful calming effect." "Really? That's very interesting. Is there any in the house?" "Lots of it," said Haley Preston. "There are bottles of it in most of the bathroom cupboards here." "Where did Mr. Rudd and Miss Gregg receive their guests?" Haley Preston went to the place at the top of the stairs, and Craddock stood beside him. He looked at the wall opposite. In the centre was a painting of an Italian Madonna and Child. It was a lovely picture. There was nothing about it, thought Craddock, that would cause a woman to look like the Lady of Shalott. "So, people were coming up the stairs?" he asked. "Yes, I brought some up. Ella Zielinski, that's Mr. Rudd's secretary, brought some others. I brought up Mrs. Bantry at about the same time as Ella came up with the Badcocks. Then I went down to find more guests." "Who was on the stairs as you went down?" "There was a girl from London who was standing with her camera in the corner, and then Ardwick Fenn arrived." "And who is Ardwick Fenn?" Haley Preston looked shocked. "He's a very important man in the world of film, Chief Inspector. We didn't know he was in this country, so we were very surprised to see him." "Was he an old friend of Miss Gregg and Mr. Rudd?" "He was a friend of Marina's many years ago when she was married to her second husband. I don't know how well Jason knows him, but we were all pleased to see him." Craddock nodded. "Thank you," he said. "Now I would like to speak to Miss Marina Gregg." Haley Preston shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said, "but that's impossible. Miss Gregg is lying down. Her own doctor, Dr. Maurice Gilchrist, is looking after her. He's looked after Miss Gregg for many years. She's been very ill and she was in hospital for a long time. She only got her health and strength back about a year ago." Haley Preston paused. "But you'll want to see Mr. Rudd. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. "Good. But first, I'd like to talk to Dr. Gilchrist." Haley Preston went away, and Craddock stood thoughtfully at the top of the stairs. Why did Marina Gregg have a frozen look on her face? What had she seen? Was it an unwelcome guest? He turned at the sound of footsteps. Haley Preston was back with Dr. Gilchrist. The doctor had sharp, dark eyes. "Dr. Gilchrist, I am Chief Inspector Dermot Craddock. Could I have a word or two with you in private?" The doctor nodded. He led Craddock to a private room. "I understand," said Craddock, "that Miss Marina Gregg is unable to be interviewed. What's wrong with her?" "She's very nervous," said Gilchrist. "If you asked her questions now, she would become very upset. I can't allow that." "How long will she be like that?" asked Craddock. Dr. Gilchrist smiled. "If you want my opinion," he said, "for about the next 48 hours. Then she'll be very willing to see you. She'll want to ask questions. Film stars are like that." "Marina Gregg's a wonderful actress," said Craddock. "Yes," said Gilchrist, "but she gets very nervous and she's not strong. She's suffered a lot in her life. None of her marriages have been happy, except this last one. She's now married to a man who loves her dearly and looks after her. She's happy in that love." He paused. Craddock said slowly, "I wonder why she's so upset. I suppose it was a terrible shock. Do you think Marina Gregg knew this woman, Heather Badcock? Had she met her before?" "No," said Dr. Gilchrist. "I don't think she knew her at all." "Does Marina Gregg ever use Carmo herself?" asked Craddock. "Almost all the time," said Gilchrist. "Everyone here does. Ella Zielinski and Haley Preston both take it." He thought for a moment. "I'm going to tell you something," he said, "but please keep it secret. Marina Gregg was very upset after Mrs. Badcock's death. She sent for me and I stayed with her, holding her hand, helping her to calm down. Then she said, 'It was meant for me, Doctor.'" Craddock stared. "Do you think she really believed that?" "Yes," said Gilchrist. "I don't know if someone intended to poison her or Heather Badcock, but Marina Gregg definitely thought that the drug was meant for her." Craddock was silent. Then he said, "Thank you, Dr. Gilchrist, but this may mean that she's still in danger." "That's right," said Gilchrist. Craddock got up. "Just one more thing, Doctor. Do you know if she said the same to her husband?" Slowly Gilchrist shook his head. "No," he said. "I'm quite sure of that. She didn't tell her husband." Haley Preston returned. "Jason's back now," he said. "Will you come with me, Chief Inspector? I'll take you to his room." Jason Rudd's room was on the first floor. He got up from his desk and came forward to meet Craddock. Immediately, Craddock realised that Jason was not an open kind of man. He would only tell you what he wanted you to know. "What can I tell you, Chief Inspector?" he asked. "Did you or your wife know Heather Badcock before?" Jason Rudd shook his head. "No. I've certainly never seen the woman before. But she met my wife at a big garden party 12 or 13 years ago. She told my wife a long story about how she was feeling ill, but she got out of bed and got my wife's autograph." "I was told," said Craddock, "that your wife wasn't paying attention to what Heather Badcock was saying. Is that true?" "Very possibly," said Jason Rudd. "I do remember that she was a little slow in replying to Mrs. Badcock, but I'm sure that was only because she was tired." Craddock was silent for a few minutes. He looked out of the window. Then he looked at the pictures on the walls. Finally, he looked at Jason Rudd. It was impossible to tell what Jason was really thinking. Craddock would have to be open with him. "Have you thought, Mr. Rudd, that Heather Badcock's poisoning was perhaps an accident? That the drug was really meant for your wife?" There was a silence. Then Jason Rudd gave a deep sigh. Yes, he said quietly. You're quite right, Chief Inspector. But I didn't want to say anything about it to my wife. Marina needs to feel happy and safe. Her personal life has been very unhappy at times. She was very anxious to have children, but she couldn't. One doctor suggested that she should adopt a child. He said it often happens that when a woman adopts a child is born naturally shortly afterwards. So Marina adopted 3 children. She was happy with them, but didn't really feel a mother's love. Then, 11 years ago, she found that she was going to have a child of her own. She was very pleased. But when the child, a boy, was born, he was brain damaged. Marina had a breakdown and was ill for years. But slowly she got better. Shortly after that, we married, and she began to feel happy again. Only 2 weeks ago, she said how happy she was here. Everything was going well until this happened. This woman's death was a terrible shock. If Marina thought someone was trying to kill her, she might have another breakdown. I see, said Craddock. But perhaps the murderer will try and kill your wife again. Who do you think is trying to kill her? I have no idea, said Jason Rudd. Tell me what happened. I poured out cocktails for Marina and Mrs. Badcock. Marina put her cocktail down on a table without drinking it. More guests arrived. My wife turned and was just picking up her glass. Then Heather Badcock dropped her glass. Marina gave her her own drink, and Mrs. Badcock immediately began to drink from the glass. 4 or 5 minutes later, she was dead. Does your wife have any enemies? Asked Craddock. A lot of people in the film world are jealous of Marina's success, but that doesn't mean that any of them is a murderer. Is there anyone who your wife has harmed in the past? I can't think of anyone. Please do one thing for me, said Craddock. Please write down the name of everyone who was at the top of the stairs or who you saw coming up the stairs at the time of the murder. I can try, said Jason Rudd. But it would be better to talk to my secretary, Ella Zielinski. Her memory is better than mine. She also has lists of the local people who were there. I would like to talk to Miss Zielinski, said Craddock. Ella Zielinski was able to give Craddock a list of names. These are the people who were at the party, she said. Thank you, said Craddock. What exactly do you do? I look after Miss Gregg's social life and her public and private meetings. I also have to run the house. Do you like your job? It's very well paid, and I find it quite interesting, replied Ella. But I didn't expect murder. Perhaps it was an accident. Perhaps one of the guests put Carmo in their glass, then Mrs. Badcock picked up the glass and drank from it by mistake. But it was Marina Gregg's glass, said Craddock. Marina Gregg handed Heather Badcock her own glass. She thought it was her glass, said Ella, but perhaps it wasn't. Marina often picks up other people's glasses by mistake. Does Miss Gregg take Carmo? Asked Craddock. Oh, yes, we all do, said Ella. I do too. And is Miss Gregg difficult to work for? She's a great artist, said Ella. She's very special. But she's either very happy or very unhappy, and there are a lot of things that you can't talk about with her because they upset her. What kind of things? Well, naturally, nervous breakdowns or special hospitals. Children. It upsets her to hear about people being happy with children. She can never have another child herself. "That's very sad," said Craddock. "Has Marina Gregg made many enemies in her life? Is she afraid of anyone?" "Marina? Afraid of anyone? I don't think so." Craddock picked up the list of names. "Thank you very much, Miss Zelinsky. If there's anything else I want to know, I'll come back and ask you." "Certainly. I want to help in any way I can." Chapter 6. The Lives of Film Stars. Miss Marple had her own ways of finding information. She asked the owner of the hairdressers, Mrs. Jameson, if she could borrow some magazines to take home. "Yes, do," said Mrs. Jameson. "Keep them as long as you like." "What's all this?" asked Cherry when she saw the magazines. "I am trying," said Miss Marple, "to teach myself a little about the film world." She put down film news and picked up Among the Stars. "It's really very interesting." "You're always surprising me," said Cherry. "You take an interest in so many new subjects." Miss Marple shook her head. "They aren't really new subjects. It's human nature that I'm interested in. Human nature is the same with film stars as with people in St. Mary Mead, or," she said thoughtfully, "people who live in the development." "I suppose you're interested in the film world because Marina Gregg and her husband are living at Gossington Hall." "Yes, and because of Mrs. Badcock's sad death," said Miss Marple. "What do you and your friends think about it?" "It's very strange," said Cherry. "It looks like murder, doesn't it? But I don't know who wanted to murder her, unless it was her husband, and he's a very quiet sort of person." "Poor Mr. Badcock," said Miss Marple. "People say he was upset and nervous at the fete that day, before it happened, I mean, but nobody really thinks he did it." Cherry took the vacuum cleaner upstairs, and Miss Marple started reading the magazines again. She did not hear footsteps coming along the garden path. When she looked up, Dermot Craddock was smiling at her through the window. "Inspector Craddock, how very nice to see you. Would you like a cup of coffee, or possibly a glass of sherry?" "A glass of sherry," said Craddock. "Don't move," he added. "I'll ask Miss Knight for it as I come in." He went round by the side door, then came in and joined Miss Marple. "Well," he said, "are those magazines giving you any ideas?" "Yes," said Miss Marple. "I expect you think it's silly of me to read all these, but it is difficult to learn much when you're sitting here in the house. That's why I've come. Here's a list of people who were at the party in the short time before Heather Badcock died. We've taken off some of the local people. The husband's name is still on the list, of course. I know you always suspect husbands." "But which husband are you talking about?" asked Miss Marple. "Do you mean Jason Rudd?" "Yes," said Craddock. "I don't think it was Arthur Badcock, because I don't think that the drug was meant for Heather Badcock. I think the murderer intended to kill Marina Gregg." "There is one question I would like to ask," said Miss Marple. "What about the children?" "The children? There's only one, in a special hospital for the brain damaged in the United States. Is that what you mean?" "No," said Miss Marple. She looked at the magazines. "No, I mean the children that Marina Gregg adopted, according to these magazines. 2 boys, I think, and a girl. Marina Gregg adopted them at different times. I'd like to know what's happened to them. They're not living with her now, are they?" "I expect they were given money," said Craddock. "I think the adoption laws would make sure that they had enough to live on."
"So when she got tired of them," said Miss Marple, "they were sent away. Children feel things, you know. They feel a sense of hurt, of not belonging. I just wondered where they were now and how old they would be, grown up from what I've read here."
"I could find out, I suppose," said Craddock slowly. "Now, do you want to look at my list? Jason Rudd, husband. Everyone says he loves his wife very much. The secretary, Ella Zielinski, a well-organised young woman, very good at her job."
"Is she in love with the husband?"
asked Miss Marple. "Definitely, I think," said Craddock. "Why do you think so?"
"Well, it often happens," said Miss Marple, "and therefore she probably isn't very fond of poor Marina Gregg. But a lot of secretaries are in love with their employers' husbands, and very few of them try to poison their employers."
"There was a photographer from London," continued Craddock, "and there was a woman who was married to Marina Gregg's second or third husband before Marina was. She didn't like it when Marina took her husband, but that's a long time ago. Then there was a man called Ardwick Fenn. He's a film director. He used to be a close friend of Marina's. He hasn't seen her for years. Nobody knew he was in this part of the world."
"Marina was probably surprised when she saw him," said Miss Marple, "and possibly frightened."
"The curse," said Craddock. "Then there was Haley Preston. He talks a lot, but definitely heard nothing, saw nothing, and knows nothing. He was very anxious to say so."
"That's all very interesting," said Miss Marple, "but I'd still like to know a little more about the children."
Detective Inspector Cornish and Chief Inspector Craddock were discussing the murder at the local police station. "Mrs. Bantry said that Marina Gregg had a frozen look," said Cornish. "Did she see someone on the stairs? There were two people from America, Ardwick Fenn and Lola Brewster, a film star. There was a girl from London with a camera, but she had been there for half an hour already. The strangers from the United States are our chief suspects," said Craddock. "Ardwick Fenn was an old boyfriend of Marina's. Lola Brewster was married to Marina Gregg's third husband. He divorced her to marry Marina. So, perhaps Lola Brewster tried to kill Marina," said Cornish. "But the divorce was 15 years ago. Miss Brewster has married twice again since then. I think I'll go to London and talk to Ardwick Fenn, Lola Brewster, and the photographer girl. What's her name? Margot Bentz. But perhaps it was the butler, Giuseppe. He was busy with the drinks and glasses." "Giuseppe?" asked Cornish. "Do you think he's a suspect?" "I don't think so," said Craddock. "But he might have a reason for killing Marina. And there are other people who were near the glasses. The secretary woman, Ella Zielinski, for example. Nobody was interested in watching her." The phone rang. Cornish picked it up, listened for a moment, then put it down and looked at Craddock. "Miss Marina Gregg," he said, "is feeling better. She's ready to be interviewed." At Gossington Hall, Craddock was received by Ella Zielinski. Craddock looked at her with interest. He was sure that she was in love with Jason Rudd. He was sure, too, that she was hiding something. It might be love. It might be hate. It might, of course, be guilt. "Marina's ready for you," she said. Marina Gregg received Craddock in her own private sitting room. She was half lying on a sofa, But her voice was strong and her eyes were bright. She was a beautiful woman, thought Craddock. Her hair fell loosely round her face, and her eyes were sea green. Her smile was sweet and warm. "Chief Inspector Craddock," she said, "I'm very sorry I couldn't see you before. I was very upset by this awful thing. Somebody wanted to kill me, and I don't want to die." "Why do you think someone wanted to kill you?" "Because they put the drug in my glass. My drink. It was just a mistake that poor woman got it. And there were other reasons too. Jason says I must tell you everything." She was silent, then took a piece of paper out of her handbag and gave it to Craddock. One line of writing was typed on it. "Don't think you'll escape next time." Craddock said quickly, "When did you get this?" "It was on my bed when I came back from my bath." "Is this the first message like this that you've had?" Marina paused. "No, it isn't," she said. "I had another one about 3 weeks ago. It said, 'Prepare to die.'" "Did you tell anyone about it, Miss Gregg?" Marina shook her head. "No. I thought it was a silly joke. I had another message on the day of the fete. One of the gardeners brought it to me. That one said, 'Today will be your last day on Earth.'" "And you've no idea who wrote those silly notes?" Her eyes opened wide. There was a kind of innocent wonder in them. Craddock admired it, but he did not believe in it. "How can I know? How can I possibly know?" "You're a very famous person, Miss Gregg. You've had great successes in your profession, and personal successes too. Men have fallen in love with you and have married you. Women have been jealous of you. You must have an idea about who wrote those notes. A name, perhaps, to suggest." Jason Rudd came into the room. Marina turned to him. "Jinx, sweetheart, Mr. Craddock is saying that I must know who wrote those horrible notes. And I don't. You know I don't." Jason Rudd looked very tired. He took Marina's hand. "I know it's difficult for you to believe, Inspector," he said. "But Marina and I know nothing about this business." "So you don't have any enemies?" asked Craddock. "Enemies? There are people who don't like us, yes, but that doesn't mean they want to put an overdose of a drug in a drink." "I would like to ask you one more thing," said Craddock, turning back to Marina Gregg. "I was told that just after greeting Mrs. Badcock, you looked over her shoulder and saw something which seemed to frighten you. Is that true? What did you see?" "Of course it isn't true," said Marina Gregg. "Frighten me? What could frighten me?" "Was it the sight of one of the people coming up the stairs? For example, Ardwick Fenn or Lola Brewster?"
"I tell you, I wasn't upset."
Marina almost shouted the words. "But Mrs.